Whenever I talk about Pilates in general, I feel like I have to start with thank you, 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 gratitude of an overwhelming level. A level of gratitude that if I allow myself to think about it in a serious way, not in a kind of fun, we're doing politics to make it about politics and introduce a silly character and have a bit of an escapist laugh about it, because the power of Pilates and the influence of Pilates over my life is really largely thanks to inspirational people I've come across on the sort of bumpy road of chronic disease, right? And the bumpy road of chronic disease does not end at Pilates, but of course it doesn't. My argument is not this is a complete solution. My argument is that this is a great place to start for the general public and a great entry point for the complete novice and somebody who's completely detached really from their body, such as I was. So, to the holistic minded and the Pilates minded, I will never be able to meet your expectations. Forgive this attempt to even comment on the subject. I mean, after these years, I hope I've got, at least I can contribute my experience and my positions on things and my thoughts on things. And then this, it's just there. This is what I love about the posting stuff on the internet now. You're like, oh, my ideas, I can get a bigger audience on here actually to hear and get what I think is so important about our health, cognitive behavior, our thoughts, how we think about our health, the ideas we have about our health will govern our health outcomes. So what I don't know if the other teachers would agree. I think they're just certainly at the festivals and conferences and stuff I've been to, which have all been tremendous. There is such a vibrant community here in Scotland, Leith, Edinburgh, Glasgow, North as well. You know what I mean? We've got such great teachers here. Wow. It's best if I start by saying, again, I'll never meet your expectations. Remember that who you are as a practitioner is very personal and unique. No one can really, I don't think that anyone really can be your health or deliver health as a service or provide health, be a health provider. I don't think there's such a thing as a health provider. I think that there are just health teachers and then health achievers. I think a quick summary of goals would be useful. You know, what we're here for, what's this all about? Just to be straightforward, please, for a moment or two before we get all into your lofty explanations and backstory and whatnot. Here it says you are teaching at a festival audience. Yeah, that's very fancy. So you're of some repute in your sector, but you want to bring this into politics. Is that right? Well, yes, politics, mate. I think that politics is everything. Health is a big issue. So I would like to put forward public health plans and make public health policy that is inspired by Joseph H. Pilates and his work. His inventions, his style of teaching as well to some extent, although the good stuff, not the weird stuff. Not there's any weird stuff. I'd be surprised if there's a single Pilates teacher who would not agree with me to some extent that we could do with modernization in our public health in general. And our institutions are a bit behind the times. And there's a way I think there are a way through policy to get maximum rollout and create lots of excellent jobs and well-paid jobs for people teaching Pilates and people making Pilates a part of every community in Scotland, and just have a radical renaissance, like I've called it, renaissance. Yes, they've probably got the right name there. That's not bad. Renaissance towards what? Elysium, you say? Elysium is the act. Yeah, so the Elysium is the act I'm trying to prepare, which will be something akin to a beverage report type thing. There'll be an Elysium kind of preface and a book, something kind of some sort of publication about Elysium, the idea, what we're trying to achieve, and then follow that up with a bill, a proposal. This is what to do. That's all something I'm working on between now and running for elections, and even probably when I get there. Hopefully, I will have finished a lot of this work before the election. I'm kind of racing through stuff at the moment because I just want to have a full platform. A full independent platform of my own means doing all of the policy on every single subject, really, and making sure I've got answers on everything. So I can't think of a better way to train as a politician. If you want to be a politician, if you want to get into independent politics, I mean, I would propose this as well to other Pilates teachers while we're on the subject. This is part of a whole holistic plan for improving everything. Can't really get to health liberty, right? Well, there are corporations and the state dominating and controlling and sort of helping each other out and creating wars and all sorts of nonsense. We just cannot have health with this insanity going on. It's impossible. My little studio, I'm sure all of American will relate to this as well. Everyone all over the world. We had our businesses completely shut, didn't we? For that pandemic, and the pandemic was absolutely botched in this country. So all of that has really impacted my thinking and elevated it to this level of get this into somewhere that can make a difference urgently. Okay. Thanks for listening and thanks for tuning in. Try to keep this man reined in, but you know what it's like.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
Yes, well, where did it all begin then? What's the sort of what's the origin story of this Ian Dunn Pilates then? Go on quickly. Under a minute. Good lord, under a minute. Why? No, listen. If I need to waffle, I need to waffle. It doesn't matter. But press pause, come back, watch the rest later. It's on YouTube. We can do what we want. Heal your pelvis. I'm becoming so. I went from Pilates teacher to pelvic health coach person for two reasons. I suffered from pelvic pain myself. That's the main thing that led me to need to turn to a Pilates teacher. Well, I think you better explain at least the basics of that so that people will understand it. Otherwise, what's the point? Okay. So I essentially started to present with some symptoms that were urological. So in other words, I felt like I needed to pee. This is a TMI conversation, but it's not really. Come on, like this is the field we're talking about. I'm not ashamed anymore. I'm over it now, thankfully. Would basically have a lot of symptoms that are quite consistent with a male suffering from something called benign hyperplasia of the prostate, right? Where in an again an older guy would be experiencing what they call enlargement and inflammation and sort of potential sort of blocking of the urethra caused by the prostate being swollen or unusually large or whatever. Now, I went through a string of abysmal and pointless investigations that concluded next to nothing of any value other than you are in pain. And I was diagnosed with a thing called chronic pelvic pain syndrome, which CPPS or prostatitis. So the whole angle is because I had prostatitis, urological symptoms, but the pain persisted for such a long period of time, it became chronic. You end up categorized as, oh, this weird diagnosis. Again, diagnosis of this kind of stuff is such an absolute hokum. Like, I mean, I can only tell you that how you guys carrying this work out and conducting these tests and then doing these appointments and such, you feel like this is fundamentally pointless and fundamentally redundant, and you have a demeanor of nihilism and a feeling of apathy about the way you work with people. The ones I met are universally like that. The reason is because they know that what they're doing is guff. It's just completely worthless. It's just completely not worth a single penny of public money, let alone the millions and billions and God knows what is poured into not just investigations by buffoons, but treatments carried out by buffoons, people who will hurt people who take joy out of hurting people. Don't believe me? Well, I mean, it seems hard to believe, right? That people in these roles could be so pathological. But I personally sat with two other sufferers of this was female sufferers who suffered from far more severe symptomologies than me and more severe disease profiles, much more chronic, lifelong disease profiles than me. Pretty much, I don't know a woman that I've known a handful of women that do not have lifelong chronic pelvic symptomology and problems. And I'm chuckling. There's nothing remotely funny about it, other than to demonstrate just the sheer scale of failure and redundancy and ineffectiveness and outright harm that is coming from our medics in these fields. I mean, it's extremely rare for people to come forward with positive experiences. I don't have an answer for that other than the one I'm giving you. There's a sort of culture of sadism. I have witnessed dehumanization. I believe that it's this individual that I sat with the two female sufferers I was discussing, was a nurse carrying, I believe, on a ward of urology ward carrying urology surgery, and was explaining a graphic, just sort of hideous story about surgery where a person was being kind of dehumanized and humiliated by the staff. And they were telling us this story because they didn't even think it was that bad a problem, didn't think it was a problem or whatever. And I mean, I turned white listening to it. And I mean, the two I was with turned white listening to it. I challenged it at the time. Hope you all remember it. Because again, it's the kind of wanton psychopathy, deranged detachment from reality that just terrifies me, that just should not be around anyone vulnerable, let alone working on a ward. I mean, these are like red flags, massive, massive red flags. And red flag people are everywhere in our healthcare. They are doing harm on the job, whether they're doing this consciously or unconsciously, I do not know. But I've seen such a tendency towards sadism and wickedness and dehumanization. I think particularly, again, I mentioned again, second time in this video, perhaps there's a documentary where a doctor is confronted on this stuff, and they just do not care, because as long as they're making money and they're getting to enjoy the power and status that comes with delusions of godlike power that most clinical types do have and participate in, they're doing harm to everybody. And until those of us that have been harmed and those of us that are sick to death of it get together and say enough is enough, politically speaking, to get change over the line in our healthcare systems, then there's just going to be a constant stream, forgive the term stream, Slightly inappropriate term. Oh, you've got to laugh, if you don't laugh. Look, I mean, it's awful, particularly around this is why I got so interested in Pilates, excuse me, in pelvic health for an abdominal. So bit of the old gassy tummy there. One is just off one's lunch. Forgive me. And what I would say is that a lot of these diseases are so preventable and avoidable. Do you know what I mean? It's like particularly with the birth. I mean, maternity. We're going to moo again, but if women were just allowed to give birth under normal, healthy, straightforward circumstances and not in a high drama bullshit nonsense circumstance, you know what I mean, then perhaps we might have healthier women all over the place, really, and happier women all over the place. So let's get together on this pelvic health stuff. It's like it's not even really complicated. You know what I mean? It's not even really difficult. This kind of training I've devised is just really about taking a holistic approach to every single muscular functionality you can come up with or think of, and sometimes people find new ones of your pelvis, your pelvic floor, your breathing, your abdominal breathing, your diaphragmatic breathing, your thoracic breathing, your whatever kind of breathing you want to do. Every kind of flavor and spectrum of activity that mobilizes and strengthens your pelvic floor is good for you. Sing, chant, release pain, have emotional releases. Try to do art, try to do music, try to do dancing. If you're fitting well enough to do that. If you're not fitting well enough to do that, look at therapy tools. Look at using massage guns. Look at internal massage. Oh dear, does that, it's not. I didn't thankfully need too much of that. A lot of people need quite a lot of that. It's really something you just get over the hurdle of. Okay, I'm going to do that and just move on and get on with that. Maybe if it's a tummy thing, like a chronic bowel, chronic tummy thing, maybe look at getting up out of the old suction, what do you call it? A flush out, so to speak. You have to just take on a holistic mindset. Anything that gets you out of the cognitive black hole that is thinking you have a chronic thing that will never go away, that's some mystery disease, woo, some UFO, woo, some fantastical immune disorder or some genetic uniqueness to you and only you. No, rubbish, rubbish. It will be to do with some toxin. It will be to do with some poison that's in your body you're not aware of, or you are aware of and you're just pretending not happening. If you do some dysfunction in terms of how you live, how you work, how you move around, what kind of habits you engage in, and there will be a way to relieve it overall. Think of chronic pain as something you can get into remission, and you will do so. Think of chronic pain as something that you're permanently stuck with, and you need the happy bars and cognitive thinking and realign how you think about health and disease and how to get better. Certainly, most of these people who work in clinical fields just are a disaster for your health. To even talk to them, to take on their ideas, they're blaming, they're outsourcing, they're constantly there to deny your humanity, deny you choices, to baffle you, to bamboozle you, to cut. I mean, like the stuff I've seen just blows my mind. It blows my mind that it's going on, and I don't know how it is that in their minds they try to rationalize that it's okay. And we need to move forward to a more holistic world, a more holistic health in general. Practices of doctors and clinicians must change, or we are just going to have more and more people like Luigi and myself who suffer needlessly, pointlessly. And there just comes a point enough and enough. Enough is enough, I think, really, on this. So, next slide. Thanks
Look
for
at you
listening.
here doing a thing on the. Is that your twinkly toes again? Your twinkly toes are out again, and you're sort of balancing in a cool shape that you're not quite capturing in the photograph. Is that right?
Yes, man, exactly. Teaser in the box. Took me years to do that. Never mind, though. Don't just forget to take a picture of the whole pelvic bit, which is just could just be doing anything. I could just be on a roller with my feet propped up, whatever. Anything. But no, you can see the straps, so at least definitely on the unit, yeah. So any Mickey Mouse fakery yeah, like I've definitely done and can do on a good day a teaser on the box, right? It's not that it's doable. Um, Radical ideas from 1945. Isn't that funny? So, like, Mr. Pilates, a teaser on the box, just to the unaware audience. There are some moves. It just kind of gets escalatingly harder and harder and harder the more into this sort of classical range and semi-classical range. And to be honest, some of the modern stuff has been developed and pretty brutal and all. And I actually Renaissance. The word Renaissance actually came because I kind of rejigged the what is. Pilates people will just not continue from here on if I admit to this. But look, I did this with deepest respect and love and just wanted to say, look, wouldn't it be cool? Look, if he was here now, he would just be, prepping a slightly different version because the challenges are now, 2000s, post 2000s. Health challenges are bound to be different from back then. So, wouldn't it be interesting if you thought, could I cater your work? Because they would say, they used to say to us that becoming a master was being able to master the method in terms of how it worked for you. And I mean, I met someone doing that amazingly. Brett, I have a mentor, Brett Mormon. Give him a little nod. Anyway, I can. He's in Sydney now. Lucky Sydney getting all the luck, having all the Brett magic floating around. So he's like he's a bit of an ethereal being. Um, Lots of man love. I won't get all cringe, but love and thanks, deepest love and thanks to all the guys who made doing Pilates all right because you're a guy, right, and didn't make it like I can't imagine. Well, I can't imagine. I can more than imagine. I have to remember being that one guy in a room full, for example, of ladies doing their pregnancy courses, and they're all here to get inspirational about pregnancy courses and whatnot. Um, I went to a very reputable, prestige kind of place to train, and was trained by the absolute top person there. So, like, I kind of like I don't want to neg any institutions because this will just be like horrendous, from here on. I would say that there is a market wide problem that's not being addressed, and that Pilates institutions, training institutions, just kind of have to fall in line. Excuse me, in order to use the cough button there effectively. Well done. Thank you. Yeah. Forgive me. So in the lovely London, they have Knightsbridge, Mayfairs, and they have Bloomsbury's, and they have it's just fabulous down there. It's wonderful. So again, the level of competition is super high. The standards are very very high. It's kind of dance world heritage as well as a kind of maybe physio world too. With who I'm not going to name names. Like just to not be negative at all because there's like people are kind of I generally have only positive things to say about the whole world of Pilates. Even those who go a bit kind of doolally trying to get the message out and whatnot. Maybe that's what I'm doing. Sorry. Haul me over hot coals if you want to, but I hopefully, I don't want to do anything that's damaging to anybody's business. Do you know what I mean? I'm more like interested in dealing with matters such as I say, if you're on a pregnancy course and you're expecting that like okay, I'll tell you this story. The lady next to this wonderful lady who I was smitten with because super French and she's about a foot taller than me, which is not difficult. But on the other hand, fantastic and amazing, and I'm just bowled over by this person. And it's like, so we're going to do the pelvic pregnancy kind of stuff. Yep, okay. I'm the only dude in a room full of about I don't know. I'm trying to guess, maybe less than 20, but 20-ish ballpark. Definitely upper teens, maybe. And I'm the only dude, which is hilarious. Uh, and it is what it is, because I tried to handle it as maturely as I could. It was like a hoot. I'll be honest, guys. This is not terrible. It's like it's just a way to get by in life. Just get into the crowd and try not to be weird. Try to be supportive. Try to be positive. Try to understand what's going on as best you can. And when you don't understand something, ask because, like, what's the point? Look, the fact that you're there. I remember down there one time, saying, "Oh, that's cute." You're generally met with this guy. Oh, Dom, what are you gonna do? No, none of them, not one of them, entertained the notion that I might be there having a surprisingly deep amount of anatomical knowledge because I had to recover from this chronic pelvic pain thing. I was so abandoned by mainstream that I had to learn quite a lot, and I already had taken on a lot of information and preparation before I even got to Pilates. When I got to Pilates, it was like, yes, this makes sense. This works. This is going to be the answer. Take the ball and run with it. Take the ball and run with it. And so, take the idea and keep moving forward with it and see if you can move it forward in an interesting way. Hopefully, that's what this work will be. Coming back to our person that we were sitting next to in this pregnancy scenario, very, very excited and told me some interesting stuff about France. Told me that in France that there is great provision of service, as in, it sounded like a superior public health service in general. However, she highlighted that the type of training, now this is critical, the type of training that she was being taught, and most women were being taught, and what she was taught to do, she was convinced, and I absolutely agree and would relate and can absolutely vouch for the fact that she was being taught terrible ideas that caused deep harm to her body. Like, she was quite, I hope she wouldn't mind me saying, I'm not naming, of course. No way to know who we're talking about at all, I think. Really, it's really international and big enough turnover anyway, that it would be hard to figure out who I'm talking about. She expressed some emotion with me and that it had been a very difficult and painful time, particularly she felt because of how inappropriate the training had been. So let me repeat myself. The state is providing service, teaching, midwifey people, I imagine. And they are teaching to women on a massive scale in France. And I presume, and I would say that pretty much this will be the case in most advanced democracies all over the world where there's a sort of mainstream toxic healthcare. They were teaching her stuff that was, she felt, injurious, harmful, net negative. So really, it's a sad situation, because obviously I'm there saying, wow, okay, first of all, I'm really bummed to hear about that. Isn't it great that we're here to get the Pilates vibe on it? And I have to be honest, it was a great day of disappointment for the both of us, because I shared with her what I had been through and how I had found that standard issue exercises and these kind of out the manual stuff was actually net negative to me. But my miraculous work with dear Brett and some others at his excellent establishment, which is still an excellent establishment, all of the establishments in Edinburgh are excellent, by the way. Can I just point out that Edinburgh, Leith, and Edinburgh and Stalbridge, Morningside, Burnsfield, there are just excellent Pilates studios all over the place. The standard is incredibly high. The standard is so high that we all generally hate one another and live like hermits and don't come out ever. But the reality is, the standard is so excellent across the board. But there are great differences in what is taught and how it is taught. Okay, so let me be clear about that. There are great differences in what is being taught in places, as usual, always is the case. Whenever there is great corporate interest in how healthcare is being taught, it is corrupted, and it's corrupted in a net negative way. Now, things about stuff that comes back from 1945, it's not really been corrupted or mucked about with, but also, it's just basically on the front of it, a holistic way to approach these problems. Liberty is everything. Our freedom to live our lives pain free, comfortable, and enjoy life to the full in every way. And that means being able to have your babies and have your lovemaking and have your day to day, just enjoying your own body, being comfortable in your own body, and living long and not having chronic abdominal diseases and pains and uh, poor breathing and anxiety and a nervous system that's constantly hot wired to hell. Pilates can offer remedy to a great deal of these things. And I think we're at a point where there just isn't any excuse to not be adopting stuff that's been around since 1945 in order to help women have their babies safely, help men enjoy their own pelvises without pain and discomfort, and get back to life without being told you've got some chronic thing, or you need to do this corporate nonsense, you need to take these drugs, or put this apparatus in you, or whatever it might be, rather than explore low tech, holistic solutions such as what are you eating? Are you sleeping all right? Are you being interfered with by a family member in stealth? Is there some sort of culture or cult that you're a member of that they've taught you to hate yourself? Have they done something weird to your bits? Something happened to you? Like, a pelvic health coach ought to be capable of comprehension of all these social features that can lead to devastating dysfunction, pain, and misery and suffering. So, pelvic health coaching, we'll talk about that further on and on other videos. But um, this little slide here, just a solidarity mention to Brett, somebody who went through a horrific trauma and recovered. Myself, yeah, what I went through was bad enough. Nothing like what some of these heroes of mine have gone through epic journeys, but mine was bad enough. And coming out the other side without being a shooter like Luigi or losing your nut, whatever, completely, and never being retrievable from awful beliefs about your body that set you back for the rest of your life, which is where a lot of people end up. So Pilates, hopelessness, many months of hopelessness. The phrase return to life is written on a book that was given to me by Brett Mormon. And I read that book in one day. And then I practiced rigorous Pilates. And my body transformed and transformed and transformed. And my pain eventually went into remission for a variety of complex reasons. The point is, the practice is the practice. The practice gets you there. The practice works. It is entropic reality. It's not something I have any doubt about. It's something I don't need to sell to you. It's something I can just tell you how it went down for me and hope that you will take on these ideas, radical ones from 1945. I have to go now because my cat has interrupted me. Dude, let's try and cut to something resembling the chase here, okay? Forgive me for the silliness and all that. This is like a tricky thing to approach. What I want to fundamentally put forward, and this video will be the first entry, as long and waffling as it will be, as long and waffling as it needs to be, okay? Because these are serious things. I don't care. There's an appetite for long form. It's not as big an appetite out there for the minute long blurbs and all that, but I've done a lot of that. So this is me getting to offer my serious thoughts. And within that, please forgive me for the rambling tangential nature of me. Meanwhile, Pilates as a public health plan. How, look, this is the beginning of that. I don't have all of that. Are you kidding me? I got what I've got, and I will chuck in everything I've got into the idea that we could take Mr. Pilates' work and make it a fundamental aspect of healthcare provision, shall we say? Look, again, I'm using my old bad language. The national care service that I have in mind for us, the future that I have in mind for us with total health liberty, I really see Pilates as being a kind of natural part of that, a major part of it, as well as all the other things like decriminalization and the availability of cannabis and any other substances, whatever psilocybin stuff. Anything that can improve the overall well-being of people should be welcomed and must be welcomed, and there shall be no prohibition, particularly to knowledge, gateways to knowledge. Let's be clear about what happened to me. This is always going to be a class issue. It can't be anything other than that. There is no way that I could have afforded all the treatment and healthcare and whatnot, all the things I've benefited from were enough for two things: the early and unexpected death of my mother, which allowed me to invest in property and gain significantly from the growth in the property market and the stability of the growth in the property market, and then also just being fortunate enough, lucky enough, the luck of the draw, to live or be around some amazing other professionals here in Edinburgh and the wider world, the other parts of Europe where I've been taught to. It's like a fantastic community, Pilates. Pilates is a well-being teacher community, right? So no matter all of our differences, and I mean, even if everything to the other teacher, if you're a practitioner or whatever level of that you're at, whether you're teaching it to other people or whether you're just advocating, if you're advocating it to other people, I mean, understand at the moment, people are coming away from their paid, state-provided, paid a fortune doctors and health providers with the advice to come to somebody like me and you and get us to deal with their chronic pain situation. Now, that means that we get to gain a market, a lovely big profitable market, doesn't it? Problem. You see where this becomes a bit of an ethical issue for me personally, because I can't really function with knowledge in my head that could massively improve the lives of others and keep it to myself or charge charge a lot of money for it. I can't do it. I can see that I can listen. That's not to neg anyone that's doing that. Let me just caveat: calm down, calm down, calm down. It's completely legit to be making money doing this. That's not at all up for grabs. What I'm trying to do, if anything, dear listener, dear Pilates teacher, dear holistic person, all of us are offering something that improves the well-being of others in a marketplace. Now, some people doing this in charity. I met an amazing person who's doing an art therapy. She's got an art therapy charity that appears into mental health institutions, God help her, where people are suffering greatly and doing next to nothing to improve their mental health, etc. They would all have access to a universal platform or source of recommended, or not even recommended. This is the problem in it. It's like they have to have access to a free market of choice. And those of us who are in that free market of choice, like myself, have to get better at broadcasting the ideas and communicating the ideas. And I reflect on my 10 odd years as like, well, I've helped a lot. I've helped enough people to feel okay about myself, but I haven't helped enough people yet. No. There's next to no doubt that I would end up like absolutely hopelessly trying to swim upriver or trying to overcome the rubbish that I'm faced with from doctors and clinicians who are utterly, utterly hopeless on it. I mean, thank God they're at the point now of saying, go to people who know anything about how the body moves, or know anything about breathing, or know anything integrative at all, anything integrative, anything connected, anything holistic at all. They cannot help you with that. They're just a pinch point for the most lucrative forms of disease prevention, management, wherever it falls on that spectrum. Some of it is just disease manufacturing, unfortunately, I think. And so the need for this is so very serious. Like I joke here, I did not know men had a pelvis. Like, so people say maleness, maleness. I mean, there will be a lot more male centric stuff in my work going forward as well. Okay. And one of them will be doing this book about ball aches, which the thing about it is, and I don't want the girls to like freak out. I'm not going to make this a weird conversation. I'm going to try not to. Every conversation with me is a bit weird, but the point would be, I don't need to talk too much into detail about bits and things, whatever. We don't need to do that in the movement environment. I mean, the movement solutions and the movement, even things like just mobilizing one's pelvis, identifying where one's pelvis are, training all the muscles of the pelvis in a holistic fashion pretty much resolves a great deal of complaints. So much so that it is a market hazard. I mean, suppression is a very real thing. And so this is I think Mr. Pilates was an attempt to overcome suppression. While we're here, sorry to drag this one on, but one time I was on the train between Edinburgh and St Andrews, and a lady sat down next to me, and I don't know if she was hitting on me. I like to think that she maybe was. Probably wasn't, right? But I was just, again, I just completely clad in lycra as I was all the time back then. So I cycled everywhere, and I just had to be the most aerodynamic I possibly could be. Don't know why. I mean, it's just like a thing. I think it's like, if you, well, you maybe figure out why. If you've had terrible body fitness and wellness for a long period of time, and then suddenly you achieve it, it's like, oh my god, it is a wealth. It is better than any lottery win. You could win the lottery over and over again. It will never ever come close to how I felt when I got my health and my wellness and my fitness together. And I really just wish that for everybody. It's not fair that it's not like that for everyone. And I mean, I met this lady on the train, and she starts talking to me about Pilates, but we started a bit apart, and I got a bit evangelical, as I always do. And she's like, "This sounds like it's a little bit like mindfulness, isn't it? It sounds like a bit mindfulness-ish, isn't it?" I wonder if she remembers this. It'd be amazing. She gave me her business card. I never thought, at the time, I was just hopeless trying to get early start to this business, and going through some interesting weird stuff of my own. But I was on this train because I was working between Edinburgh and Fife at the time, and she gave me her card. She says, like, she said to me, "Can I be honest? Like, I work for a selection panel that helps with, like, what is the disclosure here? Why it's like, so a mainstream university, right? Could be one or the other. Who knows?" Was involved in the financial allocations of research grant money, right? So research grant panels and people that just say who gets money to do what kind of research. And she told me flatly, like, they completely suppress any holistic stuff. She says anything to do, because she then shared some disease with me, some disease profile of hers that had been failed miserably by clinical medicine, and said that she'd done this, and I found it really good, and I tried to bring it into work, and I tried to be evangelical and positive, but I didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear it. They did not want to hear it. Interesting, right? I'm no tinfoil hat person. This is not tinfoil hat. This is just very straightforward. Would something that threatens the entire market basis of the bulk of, I mean, insane, eye-watering volumes of money are poured into infrastructure and staff and treatments and things, for I don't know how much of it is completely, utterly waste and bogus. But when people talk about waste in healthcare, is that what they're talking about? Because it always feels like they're saying, oh, you just shouldn't pay nurses and doctors. Where I am now, ball aches, the chronic pain memoir would be fundamental. Gist of this would be just the absolute folly of clinical medicine in the field of pelvic pain and pelvic health, and the major, I think, urgent need for a real shift in public health towards maintenance. And for me, Pilates is, I think it's at the top of the food chain in terms of what the general public could take on. And because I think Mr. Pilates, we should just really honor his work, guys, is what I mean. Do you know what I mean? Just continue it. Keep it going. Isn't it obvious that that would be the next level for that work? Isn't it natural to progress it to this stage where there's some form of curriculum-ish rollout in, I don't know, at the end of high school or something? Giving people, a lot of my thinking about holism Inc. is about how can you guarantee people a revenue stream and income stream without having to rely on toxic forms of employment, whether that be the state or whether it be the corporations, right? So thinking holistic businesses, if you're already running a holistic business like mine, where you're sort of unhooked, it's kind of like being an artist. And here's my suggestion to you: take your art, take your passion, take the thing you love, and apply it to something that once we make it, it will be eternal. Contribute to a public health program with this Pilates, his work at the middle. Whew. Wow. Whisper of a dream, guys. Let's whisper of a dream, all right? Me. More about me. Cringe, call my right. So my availability, yeah. So since the blip, folks, I just have not been able to be physically fit at all. I just haven't had any kind of what would you say, stability in my life. First of all, life has just been utter chaos, right? So when there's chaos and insanity and drama and pain and disease and suffering, particularly if people that you love are going through some kind of horrendous trauma, whether that be, extended family, wider family, immediate family, or people just in your community, maybe your neighbors, we're all going to be affected by chaos, and I'm no different. I guess that's what's been so hard, and what fascinates me about other teachers as well, because often there will be this class bashing bump of cultures where we're teaching most folk of a very insulated, stable economic life, but are employed and scraping by in a way for some reason. Usually, if we're outside of the mainstream of economic employment, it's difficult. I guess the only advantage is it kind of maintains your health, kind of if as long as you can do it. That's how I saw it. After my chronic pain episode, this was like the freedom. And so, to be honest, the pandemic and what happened with the pandemic, the whole thing has just knocked me for six in ways that I just have not fully recovered, and I haven't finished taking a prolonged period off burning assets by the day, trying to figure out what to do based on what I now know and what this kind of I just have this weight upon me. So like you can see who that this guy in the picture was so driven, yeah. And I really try to keep what I do like hinged at least to Pilates, but inevitably you get to thinking about the holistic world, and we're going to talk about the wacky diet, and then the more just like what's happening in the world has affected me the way that it affects everybody, and therefore my business is not lost completely in a way, because like I still have the assets and the studio and the equipment and what's in my head, thankfully. But I'm also privileged enough. Not only did I was I privileged enough to take quite a lot of time out to do volunteer work for a few years, and then contemplate going back to university to study social work, actually. But I'm also privileged enough to just take an abundant amount of time off, which is again a lottery win akin to that of having your full health liberty and your full freedom from pain and your full freedom from disease and your full freedom from cognitive behavior that's making you unwell and miserable and unhappy and hurt and stuff like that. So I'm still working on me at the moment. I'm still in the cave doing the Hobbit thing, a big long hermitage phase. This one, but the pandemic, yeah, really unhooked a lot. It's just like one of those events in life that uniquely to me, no man is an island, but I had built myself an island, and that island all got completely trashed and taken out in a tidal wave. That I haven't. Nobody recovers from tidal waves. Tidal waves just come along. But here's the thing: this tidal wave, and this is the kicker. I'll maybe leave you with this. I don't want to offend Mr. Pilates too much because I'm branching out. I'm taking what the way he worked and all these things I've been taught and saying, well, these really are an asset for all of humanity. Why have I lucked out with access and knowledge and so on? And I've decided to use not only this time, I don't know how, I'm hoping to recover and get back to my old self, boxing and kicking. I mean, none of these some of these photos, I was at a real state of epic fitness for a while there, and I long for it. My body aches for it. I'm suffering all of the symptoms of kind of modern day sedentary life because I'm just wrapped around a laptop preparing materials, trying to add to my skills. Bike mechanics as well. Just trying to, I think that the trauma of the pandemic made me realize that no matter the value I could have in one business and the stability I could get from one business, a sensible person has multiple lines so that when things go wrong in one area, there are fallbacks. And that makes a lot of sense to the eco freelancer, the sole trader, and it really feeds into Holism Incorporated. So Holism Incorporated, really, if it works, should be a way to find manners of generating income and revenue for people who are at varying degrees of wellness, struggling with struggling with varying degrees. See, I don't think my brain's ever been the same, obviously, since then. And a lot of people, like, I don't really know if I fit into the long COVID category. Why? Because we have absolutely broken healthcare in the UK. Nobody's ever, doesn't really matter to anybody, nothing. There's just no healthcare here. Unless you have got private healthcare, you really don't have healthcare in the UK, guys. And I don't think the world, I don't think America, I'd like to really try and bring that message to America politically and show how, look, I'm sorry, but this is not to neg the system we have. It's just to point out that there is the same pinch point, and we all need to learn why are humans doing pinch points to one another. And I'm fascinated by it. Many people from previous lives and previous time before pandemic will see, feel, and hear a very different version of Ian Dunn, but as before, because of these events. And I'll never ever be the same. I'll never ever be the same, unfortunately. But like everything, every great trauma that comes along in your life, guys, you just kind of like get stronger. You get sort of carved out of wood by it. And like myself, I've realized that I really need to get my voice louder. I'm having impact, getting into politics, and particularly that my, younger one, or all of us with kids and family in the future is completely up for grabs, not in a good way, in a terrifying, perilous, falling through the air kind of way at the moment. And we're all lunging. We've got to lunge and grab it. And there has to be that instinct to lunge and grab and catch this situation. All of us are feeling it as a form of anxiety, seeing it as a form of disease, and holistic health is so crucial to our way out of this global mess, to sit on the knowledge that Pilates is and not go after something bigger. I mean, guys, to the teaching market and the holistic market as well, this is about guaranteeing stable business lives going forward. If you, like me, were hurt by the pandemic, if you, like me, were hammered by the pandemic, even a small gym or studio, or even the big giant gyms, like, you know what I mean? I have beef with scale at business and corporate business and such. I only like little local ethical business and such, boutique business and whatnot. Scaling up doesn't float my boat. Employing people doesn't float my boat in general. I like people to have their own liberty and power and do their own things and add their own value to the world. I think that's what true capitalism is. Now, back to this, my true value at the moment is not necessarily, I think, to be deployed to just teaching hip stretches all day. And I could be doing it, but I've done it so much so that I've plateaued and I've gone beyond that. And I need to find out what it is I want to do. And I think it is to take Pilates from being a part of my own, life and regime, and the life regimes of many, many privileged, lucky, fortunate, gifted, enlightened people, and just mobilize them all to actually become broader advocates in their own community, teach their relatives, teach their loved ones, make sure that everybody kind of knows how to do basic mobility of their spine and pelvis and hips and shoulders and spine and breathing and so on, so that we have a generalized improvement of overall health for everybody at home. And based on Pilates, and the name Pilates will become absolutely synonymous with broad health improvements. Whisper of a dream, eh?
Yeah, so this was in Australia, right?
Yeah, exactly. This beach was the one where they film Home and Away. Home and Away. What a great song that is. Anyway,
So why don't you explain to your audience why we're looking at this?
just because it's cool. It's cool. That is the coolest side bend that's been caught, I think, with me personally doing it. This shadowy dude down here doing his yoga thing, I don't know. Listen, what's the point of this? I'm not thinking cool. Like, what does it say? Holistic health equals evidence-based disease theories. Evidence-based disease theories. What does that mean? Well, it means like instead of saying when somebody presents with something in your doctor's surgery, and you just ignore symptoms and what the person's telling you, and you just make your own mind up about it, and then you just use some kind of weird doctor level psychedelic osmosis skills of reading the room, smelling the room. I don't know what it is that you claim to do. In the old days, you used to look at your poop and predict the future and stuff. Nowadays, it's more just kind of you just ignore anything the patient tells them, or assume that the patient is too stupid to understand their own healthcare, their own health needs, what's going on in their lives, and feels they have the right to pinch point in their healthcare. Now, evidence-based, let's see what that means and expand that out. Yes, try and explain what evidence are you relying on for your basis of your disease theories. Oh, that's a perfect question, mate. Exactly, that's exactly the question I'm trying to ask you. Well, what does it say? These old photos are a great example of how well one can be should one apply energies inwards sufficiently, which is possible. So like there's my theory of disease, if you like, is that if you apply enough energy to your health, you will get better. Well, that's fairly evidence-based, isn't it? I mean, that's just like common sense, isn't it? Well, you'd think that, but it's not really present in a lot of clinical doctors and presentations. They just don't seem to kiss Gabor Mate says they just ignore everything that's happening in the lives of the patients and disregard them completely. Very clever, very clever. Look, a lot of my friends are GP practitioners, and they have to they just have to provide an answer to people. People just looking for an answer. Well, that's my point, isn't it? If you don't have an answer, a legit answer to what their thing is, don't just eyeball it and use some god delusion and come up with some chronicy thing or immuno thing or whatever it is to explain away something that might be significant in their life. And therefore, that's why I'm a holistic sort of self-care practitioner, self-care teachy type person. I think that really the only answer to having perfect health is to have total health liberty. Now, the reality is that as much as one might think, rather toxically, that one can be in complete control of this. So just, I know this is the direction you're going. No, dear listener, let me be clear. My current physique, it says here, is what happens when you barely leave a laptop on the couch for a few years. I'm like a method actor. Well, listen, calmly waiting for my next renaissance, yeah? Our renaissance, everyone's renaissance. My point is, it's causality, and therefore, your disease is not your fault, but a product of your environment. So if that is a young person who's only been living in a world that appears doomed on the face of it, if it's a person who, like me, was born in the years very similar to when Chernobyl went off and exposed to a huge amount of radiation at a young age, all of us have had some kind of catastrophic event or something happened to our family or our loved ones or just in society, maybe the police brutality, maybe an NHS failure, maybe a post office scandal, maybe whatever, just getting run over on the road as a cyclist, whatever it might be. Life happens to you and your health is a mirror to that. Those of us that we protect, for example, monarchs, live for very, very long, generally healthy lives. Now, were they doing enough Pilates? I don't know, but I'm sure they were probably doing enough general movement and wellness. So one doesn't need to have a kind of puritanical approach to Pilates. That's why even like generally speaking, one can recommend Pilates quite confidently on a large scale. But even if they manage to teach some kind of weird toxic stuff about breathing or some kind of weird toxic thing about your pelvic floor or whatever, if they do something like that, they're generally going to get the population moving in a safe, healthy way. Bingo. Do you know what I mean? So you've got a really safe addition to the broad spectrum of public health. And the profile of disease that we have nowadays, I think, would benefit greatly from Pilates and specifically, thinking broader holistic health. And I'm going to try and really unite a lot of these terms so they do make sense and they stop being hippy dippy fruitcake language that one can associate with anti-vax. Be sure I'm not an anti-vax person, but be more associated with evidence-based theories of disease. Unlike conventional theories of disease, which seem to be based on class warfare, ignorance, kind of weird, Christian hangovers, really. And I say non-Darwinian understanding of human evolution is critical to that as well. And don't forget that is in my constitution, and it's very clear that understanding us and the behavior of doctors over the eons as being largely negative, rather although with many, 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 many benefits, obviously, in emergency and burns, all these things, these people, life-saving paramedics, and listen, it's absurd to be so generalized, isn't it? So the same is true of movement. So the competition is not between what style of holistic Tai Chi, yoga, ninjutsu, whatever it might be, Zumba, dancing, even just dance is just, that's why Pilates and dance is just dance. Go and dance right now after you've listened to this. Press pause and then come back to it after a 5-minute dance. You will feel better. You will be able to cope with my ranting. And in fact, I recommend it because the next slide's looking a bit grim. But thanks for listening. Stick with this long, lengthy rant about Pilates and me and how we can get it into public health and make the world a better place through movement. Understand, dear listener, it's not your fault. It's not your fault, your disease, okay? And you can get better. Both these things are true at the same time. Pragmatism. All right. Next
Oh, good Lord,
slide.
Mr. Dunn, even I'm shocked. What on earth are we looking at here? What have you?
Right. This is a point. Why would someone do this to themselves? I don't know, guys. Look, I'm really doing this for public health. I hope to get some applause for at least trying. Shaming and humiliating myself, putting myself out there for all sorts of abuse. Like, just to be clear about weight loss and weight, and you know why this ended up here? Because recently I ended up in some discussion about Pilates casually on the internet, as one does, and it became an immediate topic of hatred. Right, an immediate topic of, oh, this is a horrible thing, and it's only going to do harm to people. Let me just be clear, right, that Mr. Pilates was very, very clear about the method not being abused as such a way, as being something to do with making your body look like, oh, the perfect body, the perfect gym body, I think he refers to specifically in Return to Life. I'll let you look that up. But my understanding, my reading of it, and I've called other teachers out on it before. So when other teachers are doing things like making it about beach bodies or whatever it might be, toxic, there are real, real problems with this weight loss thing. Some clients of mine, beloved people in my life and history, have ended up with family members in very severely unwell situations. God help them, solidarity to them. The culture that we're exposed to is so bad, right? This is my take on it. Yeah, the media, the marketing, the messaging and whatnot, capitalism, basically modern day corporate gigantic capitalism, not the local healthy capitalism, but big badass capitalism has made mental health so disrupted and toxified in lots of different ways, whether that be with chemicals, whether that be with dodgy medications, whether that just be with toxic ideas and notions about women's place in the world, or gender ambiguity not being a tolerable thing, or any kind of alternative lifestyles not being tolerable, all sorts of things. With this is the weight kind of thing, right? So how do you look, the toxicity of how you must present and how you must look, like, right. My argument on this would be, having seen this person swing from very, 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 very little guy, having been very, very big guy. This is an interesting part of the story of me and how I got here to be doing what I'm doing, and how I ended up with quite a high level of empathy, I think, for people going through all sorts of stuff. This is a very painful health journey, one with kind of bogus diseases usually being used to prop up weird behavior and antics and stuff like that. We'll come to that later on. But let me be clear and show absolute solidarity for people going through weight related difficulties, weight related challenges, without, what's the most patronizing, semi patronizing languages I can use. For me, I would comfort eat. I was a comfort eating person. I was suffering great despair, great loss and confusion. What am I going to do with my life? This is shortly after an incident where I had thought I had a real plan in my life. Like, I thought I knew exactly what I was going to do for my future. I was deeply in love as well. And two or three or four things just all fell apart at the exact same time. I was about 18, and my weight went through the roof. I was like 19, 20, 21. It started to fizzle off. But, like, really, when we're going through hard times and we're going through misery, loss, grief, bereavements, all sorts of stuff, we do struggle. I got out of the weight kind of cul-de-sac before I discovered Pilates and became a Pilates teacher. That's the thing I would say is a provision. So my initial weight loss, I would probably put it down to stuff like raving. And then I got really addicted to running, and then I got really addicted to cycling. And that's kind of how I ended up even more broken. So I went from the zero fitness, a body that wasn't really doing any fitness at all, particularly through my young life, due to poverty reasons, due to working class reasons, due to reasons of schools being kind of not all that great, things going on around feeding into my life, problems in my home life just not addressed or resolved that could easily be resolved in modern times by modern service provision and good healthcare provision, social work provision. These things were just not met. So suffered and struggled, wait all the way until I got into the mad running and cycling and whatnot. And then soon after that, my mother's disease followed by I need Pilates. And Pilates was the game changer. Now, post that and around that, my weight's changed a lot. But my next slide, buckle up, okay? But again, trigger worthy. If it's a weight thing, let me talk to you about what it was like on the other side of this coin. All right. Good Lord, what's happening here? This is you're on the beach. What? Can you not have some clothes on, please? Do we need to look at this? No, we don't need to be looking at anything. The point is, I cannot do a comprehensive Pilates discussion about public health and that without discussing toxic kind of appearance-driven healthcare, right? So, Mr. Pilates is very clear, or maybe I've mentioned already, in his book Return to Life, that it should not be about that. And this is like, I guess I just wanted to add some pictures of me just to reflect upon the whole thing, where like this, what states of wellness and health the spectrum I've been on, and it's quite a lot. I've been to the point of feeling like I'm invincible and feeling completely powerless and completely unable to escape a health crisis. And so, solidarity to everyone going through that. What I would say here is, I can look back at this, is probably what I would say, oh, this is me looking pretty good. And I'm like, I remember at the time being completely unsatisfied. I can remember at the time having no real attitude of compassion towards my own body, no real attitude of tolerance. It was never ever good enough. And so, my advice to the listener, dear authentic thinker, dear Pilates teacher, professional, maybe don't be so shy, right, about pushing back on people who are coming to you and asking for appearance based solutions, right? So, like for example, someone asked me once for a Kylie bum. What's that? A bum? A what? A what? What did you say? A Kylie bum, mate? Like a bum that looks a bit like Kylie's bum. Oh, like Kylie Minogue. Exactly, mate. Do you remember that bum? I remember that bum very well. Listen, anyway, why don't we get back to the whole? Yes, I think you should probably not stray from the subject talking about what was it again? What are we on about again? Sorry. Look, I mean, yes, you're talking about movement and why would you not want a Kylie bum? Well, no, hang on, mate. I didn't say I didn't want to. Look, let's just leave the Kylie bum thing alone, okay? The point is, if people are obsessed with appearance and how their body looks and comparisons and all the rest of it, it's going to make us quite unwell. Do you know what I mean? It's going to make it's going to make you very miserable because the truth is, my reflection, speaking as a guy with this woo experience to any dear listener suffering such anxieties and fears and stresses and such, put it down, my friend, because there is no amount of trying to get to perfection that ever makes you happy. And the happy ones and the healthy ones are the ones who are content and they look at their own bodies in the mirror. And no matter the flaws and imperfections that even now I'm looking at, going, oh Christ, look at this, look at that, bits she would change. Not like that bad, but bits that I wish, oh, that's not it. Usually, how short is this guy? This guy is the shortest hobbit in all of Hobbiton. And that's usually what it is, right? Rather than anything else. We all have our thing. And just don't let it rule your life. And remember that being well and healthy and fit, and the next slide may be a bit more, relevant to this, but this is a guy who has looked quite good and has also looked what would be considered unattractive. And I tell you that I didn't really feel much difference within myself between them. I can't remember that. I can only remember feeling, a bit of a lottery win in terms of being able to move around and do things pain free and get on my life pain free. And that's what this is really about. And that's what Pilates should be about. So, teachers, try to keep it more anatomical, health based, and less appearances and bums and whatnot. Although bums are wonderful to think about. But let's move on. New slide, new slide. This is the only picture of myself that I really like. On the sort of body image sort of front discussion that we'll be having, it's like the only one I really like because it's like near perfect. I don't know if there's probably far more professional level boxing. I'm not a professional boxer and boxing instructor or anything like that. I've just done enough research and geeking out and some practice and stuff. I'm like, I just love this picture because I'm like properly stepping in with the jab. The jab and the step are almost perfectly timed there. You're a bit of a show off, I think. I think you're just one of those egotistical people that just like to show off all the time. Dude, listen, it's natural to some extent for people to feel good about themselves, to have a healthy ego. Like, so I'm a person who believes in having a healthy ego after having no healthy ego in my whole life, right? Or trying to sort of delete my ego with sort of extreme forms of Buddhism and deep meditation. Lots and lots and lots of time spent in meditation. Oh, that's very hippy dippy, like a kind of 7 years in Tibet type thing. I haven't actually seen that movie. Well, it's weird because your alter ego is asking you questions about it. That's very weird. Probably is just a psychological event. Anyway, speaking of egos, psychological events, man, male health. Look, come on. I don't know what is a perfect healthy male. I don't know. I have a theory on it. A few theory. I work upstairs from a place called Hemingway's, and the place that I work in is called Pilates. These are two great men. Robert Burns is a descendant of mine, and I'm a big fan of Adam Smith and David Hume, and a big fan of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and all the founding fathers. And I really am a big fan of like lots of men from history and lots of men right now. Bernie Sanders, Jeremy Corbyn. There are good men and there are virtuous men, and men can be good. And I believe in the goodness of men and the goodness of myself. Is this an only male place? No, it's never ever been that. It's never ever been that. But if I'm honest, in the way the world is at the moment, I am thinking about upping the man branding and trying to dialogue with more guys about the situation in politics, particularly just become try to set a better example. I don't know, to become a leader. Ooh, that's very fancy to think of yourself as well. People just get on and set an example, don't they? The people that I've had an example from, the Gandalf people I've looked to in my life, they just sort of fearlessly do their own thing, right? And that's what being a good person is. Focus on being a good human. Focus on being a kind person. Focus on being a generous person. Focus on being a loving person. When it comes to issues of gender and sex and all these complicated wokeness and culture war issues, look, I'm a romantic. I believe in romanticism. I'm descended from Robert Burns. I'm a very heterosexual, normal guy, and on this side of things, I can't really fully grasp what it is like to be a woman, or fully grasp what it's like to be a trans person, or fully grasp what it's like to be a gay person, or any of these, or a minority person who's not white and not male. I can only try and give up my privilege as best I can, or use the privilege I do have virtuously and for honorable things and with good intent at least. And with folly, so be it. But life is folly. Keep trying, keep moving forward. If you want to be a good man, be a great man. Figure out what that is for yourself and do it without fear. Next slide,
The
all right?
only book I've ever read cover to cover in one sitting is Return to Life. Well, it is tiny. This is the book that he wrote, that your man wrote. Yes, Mr. Pilates put a book out in 1945 called Return to Life, through Contrology. Through Contrology. Contrology. Or Contrology, I don't know. Whatever. Contrology. Essentially, in principle, it's a way of training the body, with the goal being that you want to maximize, arguably, your conscious control, mental control, having your health under your full control at a bare minimum, or the use of your body in an anatomically functional and healthy way. Every single joint, muscle, tissue, and whatnot. Breathing and cardiovascular system as well, to some extent too. I mean, the thing about the body, right? Uh-huh, is that it is just one big giant system upon system upon system. The separating them out thing is sort of useful for textbook purposes. Like, so only a certain number of people can, study a certain area in depth. Well, that makes for a kind of clinician's way of looking at the world, a dissected way of looking at the body, instead of seeing the body as a kind of holistic thing. And like things like the lymphatic system, and things like the nervous system, and things like, the hormonal systems, and, your endocrinology, all these things. We have these disruptors in our environment. We have these disruptors in our lives, our emotional and cognitive thinking. Are we spending most of our time thinking that we're inadequate in some way, thinking that we need to buy stuff, thinking that we need to do things, thinking that we're not keeping up with everybody all the time? These are things that invade our mind and ruin our mind. And I wish I was as clever as Mr. Maybe I'll try and write something as significant. I don't think I'll ever contribute anything as significant as Mr. Pilates, but I think we can at least take the ball and run with it. Do you know what I mean? Well, absolutely. You say here, I believe, what's left of your career after you're planning on retiring. No, there's no retirement. There is no retirement. This is the thing. Pilates is a skill. Once you have it, you've got it with you forever. You become a practitioner yourself, and then it's like, well, are you going to teach it to other people or not? How good at teaching it to other people do you want to get? And then teaching it to other people becomes a real fascination as well. Becomes a bigger fascination than doing it well with your body. Well, these pictures are quite. I mean, look at these curly toes, look at little toes, the tweaky toes, little armbands. This is a hippy tippy version of you. You're of a sort of slightly unfit, older, shabbier version of this chap. That's for sure. Well, I was trying to look all right for photos and stuff. Shall we move on? Yes, let's move on. Hey, look at your little toes. Your little twinkly toes are on the thing there, on the little pedally thing. It looks a bit dangerous. Why are you trying to do this with your little twinkle toes out? Dude, that's a pike, man. That's like a gymnastic pike. That's a pretty damn good one as well. Look, Pilates pike on the chair. Could I do it without the chair? Probably not. The point is, it's just one of those cool tools, like a minimalist piece of equipment. Mr. Pilates invented that chair. Correct, obviously, my understanding is the vast majority, if not all of what I've used. It's a few things that have come up from other people and variations from other people and whatnot, but these are generally speaking Mr. Pilates inventions. And so this one here is the chair, and it's kind of one of the more like, wow, he really designed that to be a very minimalist piece of equipment. And I think that more designer engineering people should be doing something to make it minimal in some way. forgive me. So what's this? So like you can see like strength and wellness. I just want to put some more snaps up because I was like trolling through my Facebook. I want to make comments on general wellness and general health. I'm like, well, what about this? What about this one here? You're just at the poolside. What's going on with the flip flops and all that? Well, that was at the wonderful house of my Pilates teachers, the greatest of all, I would say. And it just was like, look at the hip flexion that I had as a normal range of hip flexion at the time. Funnily enough, I'm taking a picture of a flower in the pool and sending it to a hot chick that I'm trying to get in about. But I guess the difference is to be like, look, guys, you can have wellness, whatever is your barrier to life, whatever your barrier is, if it's physical, disease, pain, chronic pain, you don't have to live like that, okay? That little picture of me in a squat like that, I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but many people do not enjoy the range of movement that allows one to enjoy the, what would you say, full quality of life that they deserve. And it bothers me in a way is so profound. And so it keeps me up at night. It does. Keeps me up at night. The fact that there are people who would be going through things similar to me that could easily get out of these horrible traps and not end up like a Luigi person or whatever. And this is of all genders, all humans, some even cats and dogs and whatever. Okay, like, and maybe the odd happy bar. But this is a little, this slide really just to show some fun mobility and having a laugh. All right. And how having a laugh and having fun, Pilates just being a bit silly, not really making a great deal of like it's almost like it should just be part of everyone's life. Okay. And that's why I think we should call it a public movement therapy plan. Movement as therapy. So movement as therapy, movement to get one better, movement to improve one's health. Mr. Pilates has his name on it. Is it fair to continue that? I don't know. But my plans, I've got this thing called Elysium Act. I'd like to take us into a world of open source, completely free, universally provided, not just held to the wealthy in all various pinch points and knowledge bubbles and whatnot, but for knowledge of health and wellness to be abundant for everybody. That's what I would like to achieve. All right, next slide before I get too emotional about that, because it is a big, big deal, guys. If you've lived in pain for a long time, and you know that, you can probably tell by my voice, I know what it's like. I would have believed how well I could get. And I hope that you don't believe it to some extent, like, nah, I can't believe. Because when you do, it becomes even better, and it's like, oh my God, look at how well I am compared to how I was. Let's all have that. Ah, is this the sort of goopy stuff now? Goopy? Yes, the goop is the goop. You know what goop is? No. What's goop? I don't know. I've listened. Look, can we just get a move on? Eh? What's all this then? Come on. Right. Well, this is was not. I don't know what goop is, but this is not goop. No. This is like holistic therapy stuff. So we've done a bit of this in the studio. There's a group out there of people who were here, a small band of kind of hippy dippy healthcare pirates that were in the studio, a band of rebels. We did a kind of few gatherings. They were wonderful, excellent occasions, wonderful things. One of the coolest things that ever happened in the studio. We did group Reiki for people suffering disease and even terminal illness. Actually, degenerative, chronic, very chronic cancer. To be honest, so people have come and gone and benefited from a very relative to the kind of teacher people I look up to, quite mediocre sound bath experience, and so it's quite a mediocre price bracket because again, often this is reasonably priced offerings, right? I don't like to take the mickey on what I'm charging with this stuff. These are very modest prices because they're usually little add-ons that I'll do for clients that are seeing me for other things. Because it's like, this is what I think. I think that Pilates is a bit of a gateway drug into a more holistic lifestyle, a more holistic thinking. Now, this is not some sort of joining a cult type thing, calm yourself. It's just going, oh, okay, so wait, me feeling good actually improves my health. So things that make me feel good, if I do them, my health will get better and my pain will go away. For example, if you might be at that stage of self-awareness, like a lot of men are, and I really was. Oh, self-care? What's this? Yeah, oh no, no. I'm not going to just sit here and still do nothing. Are you insane? Sit still and do nothing? For what? Why? Just extremely frustrating. Well, one needs some activities to do, sort of, don't we? You know what I mean? Like with me, the way I've gotten over all that stuff is to understand that it's not just sitting there doing nothing. It's not just a waste of time. There are activities. There's something going on. If you pay attention, there is something going on. It's very subtle, and hopefully you can get a nice partner person to do it with you. I recommend it with the whole the bedroom. Get the kind of relationship. What do you don't say juice is flowing. Don't you dare say that. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to make this podcast weird. There's nothing about that, about whatever. Look, um, people need to feel good holistically, have a happy, healthy life, and whatever is your barrier, your pain barriers, your disease profiles, you want to come at it from both ends. You want to what? Come at it. What? Do you want to rephrase that? Don't say. I said you want to look, just do Reiki and stuff. Don't ask me. Other clever people have done it before me. I'm just it all helps, okay? It all helps. People in pain, people suffering. You don't need to be in pain. You need suffering. And part of it is like letting yourself get better and do things in kindness and sort of resign the idea that the clinical box ticking stuff is ever going to work and become comfortable with the idea that something more airy fairy and tangential and melancholic and emotional and sensitive and kind and compassionate and loving and warm and human and primal even is going to help you through this and get on with that. It's cool. Home. Oh no, here it goes again. Home. Bye. Next slide.